Hi again, everyone. Thank you again for checking in and visiting this channel. Now, I know the title of this video might catch some people's attention, but before I get started on what I really wanted to talk about, or what I want to talk about, I should say, let me mention something for those of you who are just seeing just this video and may have not looked at the other videos. Yes, this channel is titled Caribbeanology, but I think when I started this channel around that time, there were some Hebrew Israelites who had made it down to the Caribbean, and they were on some islands that I am familiar with. I think they were on the island of St. Kitts, which is where I was raised. And I think they were also on the island of St. Martin, which is where my stepfather is from and where I've been. Interestingly enough, because I had dealt with Hebrew Israelites years prior, a couple of my friends came to me and were asking me questions about the Hebrew Israelites. I guess they figured I knew something about them, or I had some information about them, because they never really heard about them. You know, at the time, I was living in New York City, so obviously I used to see them all the time. When I first found out about them, I was not living in New York, but a friend of mine had become a part of one of their sects in Georgia. And that was my first exposure. But we're talking about 25 years ago or more, when I first heard about them. And that's when I first started looking into what they were all about. But then when I moved to New York City, I saw them up close and personal. You may have seen videos. I would see them. And for those of you who are Hebrew Israelites and you're looking in right now, which I'm sure there are quite a bit of you that might be looking in, I saw them up close and personal. Now, I must admit, and I must say, I should mention that there are different groups, different sects of the Hebrew Israelite version. There's some of them that are rather, how should I put it, sublime. You know, they have their churches, they have their belief systems. They are more or less like in a normal church setting, and you don't really hear much about them. You know, they have their beliefs and everything. But the others that seem to be like rabble-rousers that you see in New York City on the sidewalks, yelling and screaming. As a matter of fact, I've been seeing them down here in this state where I'm at right now. I've been seeing them quite a bit, you know, on street corners, and you hear them yelling, and they're dressed in their Hebrew Israelite garb, and they have them on, and they're there, and they're basically just going at it. It's a little bit different there where I see them here, because they're in a predominantly black neighborhood. But the ones in New York City, they would be down on, like, say, 34th Street, 42nd Street, different areas where there were a lot of, you know, white folks walking back and forth. And there will be occasional confrontations, some of them that you see online on YouTube, where you see them going back and forth with people who call themselves Jews, other white people. You see them going back and forth. So those are more or less the ones that I am somewhat addressing today, even though what I'm going to say can include all of them in terms of the belief system. So here are a couple of things that I look at, and reasons why I cannot put any or attach any credibility to their belief system or movement, if that's what you want to call it. So, of course, as you know, Hebrew Israelites believe that black folks, or at least some black folks, you know, depending on which group you're speaking to, they believe that the black folks on this side of the world, who are descendants of African enslaved people, are actually descendants of the original Israelites that we read about in the Bible. Some of them have gone as far to break us up by basically saying, well, Haitians are from this tribe, Dominicans are from that tribe of Israel, Jamaicans are from this particular tribe. Some of them have gone that far to kind of like narrow it down to say this specific group of people living on this particular island or on this particular landmass are descendants of individual tribes from the ancient kingdom of Israel. So I hear them saying that, look at certain things and whatever. One of the things, though, that seem to tie all Hebrew Israelite groups together is this belief that Deuteronomy chapter 28 in the Bible is speaking about the black experience, speaking about us as black people. Now, the first thing that I have to kind of point out is the fact that, and there's this big elephant in the room that they never mention. I've pointed out before that there have been other groups who have gone ahead and used that same thinking, that same logic. Believe it or not, the British people, or there were people amongst the British, when the British were at its height of its power, the British Empire, who believed that the British people, or the people living on the British Isles, were the descendants of two ancient Israelite tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. They believe this, and this is a belief that they had. It started out somewhere way back in the 1500s, so it was nothing new. So they too held this belief, and why would they not hold such a belief, considering that England was basically ruling the world at the time, or one of the great world powers, all the way up into the 20th century? Why would they not believe that? They believe that the evidence that they were of those two tribes is by looking at the blessings that had fallen upon the British Empire, dominating the world. Rich, spices, influence. They had it all. So they looked at that and said, there's the proof. Now, of course, for them to arrive at that conclusion, they had to come up with all sorts of semantics and changing up words and making up meanings and so on to somehow squeeze an interpretation out of biblical text and say, see, we British people, we are the true people of God because we are descendants of two of the lost tribes of Israel, Manasseh and Ephraim. This is what they believe. And they looked around and they beat their chests and they say, look at our empire. Look at the British Empire. It shows that the blessings of the Almighty are upon us. That was them. And that belief is known as British Israelism. Okay? That's what it was called. It's still around. It still floats around here and there, but its heyday has long passed, but it still has trickled down into different white supremacist groups who basically still believe this and have this idea about the white identity and that it's wrapped up in a belief that somehow they are the true people of God. You don't hear much about it, but it's actually out there. It is one of those core principles that they do believe. Contrast that now with black Hebrew Israelites who came after, at least their heyday or their rising or their arrival on the scene came after the British Israelites, or who believed that that's what they were. The contrast here is those who believe in British Israelism believe that the blessings that the British Empire was experiencing was proof that they were the people of God. The Hebrew Israelites, now the black Hebrew Israelites, have it the reverse. They look at Deuteronomy chapter 28 like it's a badge of honor and wear it out there and say, hey, the curses that the chapter speaks about refers to us as black people. We're cursed. That means we're the people of God. I've always thought that logic made absolutely no sense whatsoever. So they're looking at the chapter and saying, see all those curses mentioned in there? Only black people have gone through that. So that must mean we are the people of God because we got the curses. Hey, we got the curses. You ask a Hebrew Israelite, why do you believe? First thing they'll do, go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Read all those curses. Have you ever seen any other people in human history that have gone through this? That must mean we are the people of God because we're cursed. Just think that through. I am cursed, so that means I am a child of God. That means I am one of the chosen. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but let that digest for a while, okay? Just think that through. The other thing is, I did say two, but to attach to this first part. So, you feel you are cursed, or your people have been cursed, and that somehow fulfills something in the Bible, and that somehow means that you are one of the chosen. Now, the other thing is, if I feel I am being cursed, or I'm cursed because of some prophecy in the Bible or some predictions in the Bible, why in the world, 2,500 years later, would I want anything to do with this deity that is supposedly cursing us? I'm going to sit here and grovel onto some deity that is like so petty that 2,500 years later, he's still cursing us, still angry at us, because we're not groveling before his feet, because we're not eating what we're supposed to eat, because we're not following his laws, his principles, or whatever you may think those are based on what you see in the Bible. That after all these years, he still wants us to follow those antiquated laws of 2,500 years ago. And if I don't follow them, if I don't dress a particular way based on what the Bible says, if I don't eat certain foods or not eat certain foods based on what the Bible says, if I do not observe the Sabbath or whatever you may think you may be, what day you should be worshiping on, if I don't follow that, he's going to curse me, or that's the reason why we're being cursed. Now think about it. Do you think at any point in the future that all black people on this side of the world are going to wake up one day and yeah, I think we need to be following the Bible. Yeah, I think we need to be following the ancient scriptures. We need to do that. Yeah, let's all collectively come together so these curses can stop, because that's the only way these curses are going to stop, when we start following these principles. That's not going to happen. We're not a monolithic people where we all think the same thing or believe the same thing or are going to believe the same thing. So if in order for the curses to be lifted, we need to follow the principles of the Bible or the Old Testament, whatever scriptures the Hebrew Israelites feel that we need to follow. If that's the only way those things are going to be lifted, the curses, that's not going to happen. So we'll be continually being cursed. Again, following their logic. And are we going to walk around beating our chests? Hey, I'm cursed. Hey, bro, I'm cursed. I'm a child of God. Hey, I'm cursed. I'm cursed. Does that make any sense? Anyway, again, let that digest. Just think that one through, okay? That's one. The second thing is this. Today, in today's world, I don't know. I have not gone out there and interviewed any Hebrew Israelites to know this. But I would think that many of them have a problem with the current people living in the land of Israel who call themselves Jews or Israelites or Israelis, right? I tend to use the term Israelis because not all Jews are Israelis, not all Israelis are Jews, and so on, right? It plays into the narrative that the Hebrew Israelites have, that those people over there are imposters. They do not belong there. That land is not theirs because it belongs to us, the black Hebrew Israelites. We black folks, that's who it belongs to. Those people are imposters. They should not be there. Again, that is Hebrew Israelite thinking, okay? All right, let's go with that. So let's go ahead and just say we black folks on this side of the world are the true Israelites, the true Jews. And those people in Israel are imposters, the Netanyahus and the European Jews who eventually moved over to Palestine. Let's just say they're all imposters, they're fake, they're not true or whatever. But we black folks are the true Jews. Now, beyond that, the argument we will make, many of us will make, is that what the Israeli state is doing to the Palestinians is completely wrong. I would say many black folks, being that we've gone through a shared struggle and persecution and oppression and apartheid in South Africa and so on, would recognize what is going on there in Israel right now. And we will go ahead and condemn the Israeli government for what they're doing to the Palestinians. Look at how they came in. They took over other people's lands. And once they took over the land, then they made those people, those original people of the land, or the original people that they met there, the Palestinians, now have them as second, third, fourth, fifth class citizens on their own land. We'll have a problem with that. There's something morally wrong about that, something unethical about that. We can recognize that and see that something is wrong. Now, if we are, as the Hebrew Israelites say, a person like me, a person like them, that we are the true Israelites and we're descendants of those ancient Israelites, look back in the Old Testament and see if you don't see a parallel to what you might be condemning today. What does the Bible tell us? So again, here we are. We are the true descendants, right? That's what you're going with. Let's look back at our ancestors then. What did they do? There was a land known as Canaan. The Canaanites were minding their own business, living their own lives, doing whatever they wanted to do. The Israelites show up, coming from Egypt, came into their land, and in short, did what the Israelis have done today. Moved into a land where there were people living there already, and it was even worse back then, because there was no ancient claim that could be made. Well, I mean, I'll get to that in a minute, because there kind of was an ancient claim. But they came in, and it was like, hey, these Canaanites are bad people. They're wicked. They're heathens. They're devil worshippers. Our God told us we need to wipe them out, exterminate them, get rid of them, and take over the land. That's what they did. So if you are looking back, if you're condemning what's going on today and looking back and saying that was okay, there's a problem there. There's a disconnect there. But again, you're saying those people back then, those are our ancestors, right? That's what the Hebrew Israelites are saying. So what were they out there doing? Back in those ancient times, according to the Bible. Whether it's happened or not is another story. But according to the Bible, the narrative says that Joshua, from the tribe of Ephraim, if I'm not mistaken, I think is where he was from. He goes in, commissioned to go in and exterminate the Canaanites. And once they're exterminated, then the Israelites took the position, took over the land through bloodshed, killing everyone. In the book of Joshua, I think it says that Joshua left none of the Canaanites breathing. Of course, that was not exactly true. That was kind of an exaggeration, because we still read about Canaanites further on down in the Bible. But in the biblical terms, it is called the conquest of Canaan. Now, what were they going by? Tell me if you've heard this story before. A man by the name of Abram, living in the land of Ur in what we call Kuwait today, or southern Iraq. Here's a voice. The voice is identified as God. The voice tells him, get up, get out of your land. I'm going to send you to a land that is not yours. I'm going to send you to a strange land. So Abraham gets up, follows the voice, and that is supposed to represent his faith. He just hears a voice. People today that hear voices, we tend to think they're crazy or they end up in a psychiatric ward. But back then, it's the Bible. God is talking to him. He gets up, follows the voice, goes along the two rivers of Mesopotamia, Tigris and the Euphrates, and he ends up in the Levant in what we call Palestine. In the land we call Palestine, but back then it was called Canaan. He ends up there. He is a stranger amongst people already living there. Kind of like a Christopher Columbus kind of a thing, I'm going to show up, there are people living here already. While he's there, because of his amazing faith, God, this voice comes and tells him, hey, I'm going to give you all of this land. Doesn't mention anything that other people are living there, mind you. The voice just says, I'm going to give you all this land. This land is going to be to your descendants. So when the Israelites in Moses' time, in Joshua's time showed up, they were looking back at that old claim. Hey, this land was promised to our ancestor Abraham, as his name was changed to. And because it was promised to him, we have a right to claim this land. But there are people here. There are people here. But it's our land. You know, you hear somebody saying, but there are people living there. You can't say it's your land. That's like Christopher Columbus showing up and saying, I'm claiming this land for Spain. There are people here. I don't care. I'm claiming it for Spain. Oh, there are people here. Let's just wipe them out then. And we'll just take the land. Where is it any different to what happened in the Old Testament? Back in the days of Joshua, again, according to the Bible. Shows up, the people of Israel, they wandered through a desert for 40 years. They come up on the cusp of the Canaanite borders. They looked over. If you remember, Moses sent spies over to spy out the land, see what was going on. Moses died. Joshua takes over. Joshua goes in on this commission to go ahead and exterminate the Canaanites, get them out of the way, move them off the land, just get rid of them, so that the Israelites now can move in and they can carve up the land amongst 12 tribes and say, this piece is yours, that piece is yours, this piece is yours, that piece is yours. So, if you claim to be a Hebrew Israelite and claim that those people are your ancestors, are you proud of that? Is that something you would look back at and say, yeah, we had a right to do that? But still turn around and say, what are the Israelis doing to the Palestinians over here? That's so wrong. But what we did back then, that's so right. And this is where it just becomes one mass confusion. You can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. Agree with this and say this was okay, and look at this and condemn that. It's basically the same playbook. Same story. Israelis come in, or the Jews came in from Europe, from wherever they came from. This land, and I'm not saying all Jews, mind you, okay? Do not get, because not all Jews believe that nonsense. But the Zionist Jews came in and said, this land is rightfully ours. Our ancient father Abraham was promised this land, and our people lived here in the ancient past. Not mentioning how they got the land, but they lived here in the ancient past, so we have an ancient claim to this land. Same argument. Back then, it was the same exact thing. Joshua and all of them showed up. We have an ancient claim to this land. These people don't belong here. These Canaanites don't belong here. I remember the Canaanites were living there. Those were the original peoples. Abraham came in, and the Bible says he was a stranger amongst the Canaanites. He was the stranger. He was the visitor. They were the host. And somehow, somewhere along the line, it ended up becoming Abraham's land. And it was his descendants who were going to inherit this land. Same story. 25, 26, 2700, 3,000 years apart. Same story. So again, think of what you're saying when you say you're a Hebrew Israelite. One, you are pointing to a chapter in the book of Deuteronomy and saying, because of curses, I am cursed. Therefore, I am a child of God. That makes no sense. I am cursed, and that is proof that I am one of God's people. Then, I am cursed, or we have been cursed for the past however long he's been angry at us, up to this very current day, because things haven't really improved for black folks. I mean, of course, it has improved in some ways. But overall, we're not the cream of the crop out there in today's world. We still struggle. We're still going through oppression. We're still going through discrimination and racism and everything else that you can think of. Diseases that are common amongst us as black folks. So we're still experiencing these curses. When are they going to be lifted? They're never going to be lifted because all of us black people are not going to come together, start singing Kumbaya, and follow what Hebrew Israelites tell us. They're going to still be black people who want to be Baptists. Still black people who want to be atheists. Still black people who want to be Episcopalians. It won't have nothing to do with the Hebrew Israelites or their teachings. So if they're not following that, that means the curses are going to continue on. but you want to be associated with. Hey, with a God that is basically telling you that you are a part of this group. This is definitely not something that I would go ahead and be proud of and hang my hat on and say that is what I am a part of and that is what a part of what I want to be. That is one argument. And then the second thing now is to turn around and basically out of one side of your mouth condemning what is going on in Israel today between the Israeli state and the Palestinian people and how they're going about doing it, or how Zionism came in and helped to create the state of Israel, basically hijacking the land, so to speak, and then taking the people that they met there and having them as second-class citizens, oppressing them and confining them in a particular area in an apartheid-type system. But then turn around and completely ignore, because if you talk to a Hebrew Israelite, they don't bring up that stuff. Their focus is just on Deuteronomy chapter 28. Not so much the rest of the Bible, unless there's a couple of verses in there to prove whatever point they think they're trying to prove. That is how they go about doing it. But have you ever seen anyone pressing them with that information that I just provided? Okay, say you're a Hebrew Israelite. Let's just go with that argument that you are. Are you proud of what your ancestors did to the Canaanites? Do you realize how they came into this land? Do you really believe that was true? That some voice spoke to their ancient forefather and told them this land belongs to them? Or do you think this is just a nice, cute narrative someone made up later on to justify that conquest? To justify that bloody conquest, if that is what exactly happened. But if I was going to go by the Bible, which is what they want to go by, I would not be proud of something like that. That's not going to be something, yeah, like my ancestors, whatever. And the funny thing about it, you would think by them doing something like that, that would be the reason for the curses. You know, that a God, a good God, a moral God would come down and say, you did what? Well, I'm going to curse you guys for being such evil bastards and going in and murdering children and women and men just because you wanted their land. No, they're being cursed because they didn't observe a particular day. Their dietary laws are not up to his standard, and you know, it just gets wild and crazy. So, when it comes to a Hebrew Israelite coming to me, these are the things that go through my mind that just basically causing me to just like, no, not for me. Not for me. And again, I was once a Christian before, read through the Bible, knew all these things before. So when the Hebrew Israelites are coming to me, because some of them have tried to come to me and through some of my other videos to try to tell me about what they believe and whatever. No. I don't need a holy book to prove my worth. I don't need some deity to prove my worth. I don't need to be attached to any religious whatever to prove my worth. I know I'm a black man. I know the history of what the black people have gone through. And I know a lot of people are sometimes looking around for something positive to cling to. And what could not be the most ultimate of positive things than to believe that the great almighty God of the universe somehow has me as part of his special group of people, his little snowflakes. That makes you feel good, like the God of the universe. That's my boy. You know, that he, you know, I am part of his special little group of people. Well, I don't need all of that. I can just look at myself, look at the world that I'm in, treat other people with respect, treat other people with kindness, do my best to love my neighbor no matter what their color, creed, or whatever it is, and just go about living my life on a simple principle of not doing to other people what I don't want done to me, which covers the foundation of respect for everything that another person might have. I respect their property, I respect their person, I respect their humanity, I respect what's theirs, because I would like them to also respect what's mine. Don't need all that other stuff. Definitely don't need to be on a street corner yelling at white people, or the fake Jews, as you call them. Don't need to be out there to prove anything by yelling and screaming. But that's just me. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But for the things that I mentioned, let it digest. Think it through. See if it makes any sense to you. On that note, thank you for visiting. You can drop down the comment section. Some of you may be angry. If you're Hebrew Israelites, you may come in here and you might want to go ahead and tell me all about what the Bible says and who said what and whatever. Please feel free. Go ahead and do that. You can dislike this video, but I'd like you to share it. Share it amongst your congregation. Share it amongst your other Hebrew Israelite friends. Let them think about it. Get back to me, okay? Thank you so much. You guys take care. You can subscribe, by the way, and you can also go ahead and share this video. You guys take care until the next video from Caribbeanology. Bye.